Welcome to a very special edition of the Roman Gazette. This week we're doing a collab with none other than Tweedy Outdoors / wine / pubs / mead.
I'm still talking to my branding team on the mead, thinking mediocre.
Tweedy mead.
Tweedy Outdoors.
Fantastic. Shall we collab?
Yes, let's
collab.
collab. Let's collab. Oh, right.
That's still my compact.
Oh, sorry, right, yeah. Yes. Yeah. We're in St Albans today, the Roman town of Verulamium. We haven't quite agreed on Verulamium. Established in AD 50 as a municipium, which means that the local residents had Latin rights. I don't think they were able to vote, were they? But they had a lot of freedoms within the Roman Empire. Of course, it was famously sacked in AD 60 by Boudicca, and then more recently excavated by Sir Mortimer Wheeler, who many would consider an expert, others might consider more.
We're going to be having a look at what remains of the Roman town, and then we'll be talking about what happened next once the Romans left, as usual. So, Tweedy, do you know much about Roman Britain?
I mean, only the absolute schoolboy basics, really. Verulamium was established next to the site of a pre-existing tribal centre for the Cativaloni tribe, and this was at one time their tribal capital, but there was a lot of back and forth. They moved, possibly including at a different time the site known as Devil's Dyke near Wheathampstead, which is just up the road. And it's likely that they chose this site to keep an eye on the Cativaloni, who had, shall we say, a changeable relationship with the Roman Empire over the preceding 200 years. And this was, even post being a tribal capital for the Cativaloni, Verulamium remained an important centre for that tribe and the surrounding tribes. We have behind us a surviving section of the Roman wall at Verulamium. This dates to roughly 265, in that sort of ballpark. And it's interesting how this reflects the local geology. If you follow me over here, the wall is constructed of a combination of mortared flint rubble and brick tiles, and both of these reflect the local geology. We're in an area of chalk, and particularly upper chalk here, and of course all of you amateur geologists will know that flint nodules are only exposed in the upper layer of chalk, so there's plenty of that as building material, this rubble. The downside of that kind of rubble that it just makes a bit of a mess, so the kind of strata of brick tiles in between help to level it out and order it. And these were made possible by the fact that if you look at the geological map of Hertfordshire, we have a formation called a Reading bed that very neatly encircles St Albans. So all the building material that the Romans needed to make this fine wall here was to hand here in St Albans, Verulamium. To the people of post-Roman Britain, these brick tiles would have looked like space-age technology. It's amazing to think that we didn't rediscover the art of brickmaking in the British Isles for nearly 1,000 years. They were extensively stolen to build St Albans Abbey, later St Albans Cathedral, and other parts of the town. I'm enjoying the ridiculousness of carrying a foot of a mace. It's sort of the antithesis of a backpack. One of those walking past the camera shots, but this is the London Gate. The layers of brick tile provide stability, as we were discussing earlier. The Romans actually had a form of spirit level. They called it a corybates.
So, Tweedy, this particular stretch of the wall here at St Albans is significant to me. As a 20-year-old, I lived here, not in this park, in St Albans, and it was one Sunday when I was down here wandering around, recovering in the way that 20-year-olds need to recover on a Sunday, that I was struck by the enormity of what this stood for. Civilization found and civilization lost.
Can I have a go with the fake drone now? theatre at Verulamium. At its peak, this could seat 2,000 people, which for comparison is roughly the same as the Royal Opera House today. That might give you at least a clue as to the population of Verulamium. I couldn't find any sources that were willing to give an estimate on the population of Verulamium, so I applied what's called Zipf's law, working backwards from the estimates for the population of Londinium at the time, which was 60,000. Zipf's law states that the second thing in a sequence is usually about half the size as the first thing, and the third thing is about a third of the size. So I'm going to guess 20,000 people was the population. So about a tenth of them could have been seated here in the theatre. It's a theatre rather than an amphitheatre because it actually had a stage, so it would have looked a little bit more like modern day theatres as we know them today. It's not completely circular, it had a straight edge at one side where the stage sat. Historians often comment that by around 350 AD the theatre here was filled with rubbish, and use that as a signal for the decline of not just the Roman occupation of Britain but Verulamium. Of course, you've got to remember by that time it had already been in use for at least 200 years, and how many modern buildings have that kind of longevity? It's possible that the decline of the theatre here is somehow a signifier of the shift to Christianity. Of course, Roman amphitheatres were associated with, whether or not this is true, the throwing of the Christians to the lions, and there may have been some memory in the early Christian community at Verulamium post the Roman era of those atrocities committed against their fellow Christians, and that could have led to the rejection of the theatre and its subsequent use as a rubbish dump, but we don't know.
In reality, life was actually thriving in Roman St Albans in the 4th century. A Professor Freer, in his excavations, discovered significant buildings being constructed as late as 380 and 390. And the 381, the mosaic floor in that was being patched and repaired nearly 100 years later. When it ceased to be a house, it became a corn drying barn, and then when it was finally demolished, probably just over 100 years after its construction, it was then a barn was put in its place. So this idea that everything stopped in 410 once again is shown to be nonsense. Right, that brings us to the end of this edition of the Roman Gazette. Tweedy, have you enjoyed the collaboration, even though it sounds a bit like some sort of wartime act of betrayal?
I have, yes, but is it time for the Gevrey Chambertin now?
In a moment, Tweedy, I've got to do the outro first, so if you'll just bear with me.
Easier if I did that bit. I'll just sort of rattle it out.
Okay, Tweedy, I'll leave Tweedy to do the outro.
Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. That's all you have to do. Just that.
Is that it?
Yeah, and then you're done. Then you turn the camera off. That's it.
I hope you enjoyed that. For Tweedy and myself, that's our first attempt at a collaboration. There's links all around us for the many iterations of Tweedy that we have out there. See how they grow. Please support Tweedy's channel and support this one as well. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I just want to say it's been a very fun day out, and thank you for having me along.
Shall we go and do some Tweedy Pubs?
Yeah, pubs next.